Welcome to Booked and Branded, the podcast where we dive into the world of entrepreneurship, personal branding, and building a business that feels as good as it looks. I'm Ellie, and each week we'll have inspiring conversations with founders, creatives, and changemakers from around the world, teaching both you and me how to do business and entrepreneurship better. Whether you're a freelancer, creative, or a business owner, this is your space to learn, get inspired, and to take action to build a business and a life that you love. Let's dive into it. Welcome to Booked and Branded. Today in the studio, we are joined by Dan Hobson. Dan is the founder of Together, a community-focused cafe that is being built around supporting the Bali Street Mums Foundation, with 50% of the profits going directly to the charity and vital work experience available for the children. The goal is to tackle short-term financial difficulties whilst promoting the opportunity for long-term sustainable change. Dan will be sharing the meaning behind the story, along with a completely transparent view of what it's actually like to open a business in Bali. Welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. So, can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and what brought you to this point being in Bali?
Yeah, absolutely. The career journey and the starting of the cafe are two completely different paths, but I'll give you a bit of a background. So I've been in Bali for about 3 years. I've been working in business and corporate for probably 15 now, feeling a little bit old. But essentially, I came to Bali in 2019 on a bit of a career break, fell in love with the place and wanted to come back. I was working for big corporate in London and through COVID managed to find a way to travel around the world somewhat. I wanted to get away from restrictions and lockdowns, so I took my laptop and jumped on a plane. And through that, a number of people that I used to work with were looking at expanding their organization out towards Asia, and they saw that I was able to jump on planes and take my laptop and be relatively successful whilst living this kind of traveling lifestyle. So when they wanted to open their Asian branch of their technology business, they thought I'd be a good fit. They couldn't afford to pay me the money that I was on at my previous role, so the negotiation ended up with me being able to live in Bali where I wanted to be, and they get someone slightly overqualified for their role in return. So that's how I ended up here. I'm still doing that role here 3 years later, but now also have a side project, a passion project of opening a cafe here in person, which actually has just started construction today. I just got the video from the builder whilst I was sat waiting to speak to you. So I'm very excited.
Congratulations. What a great day to speak to me.
Yeah. Got full of energy, Dan, today.
Yeah, I love that. So when did the idea of starting a cafe first come up for you?
It's interesting because I've never worked in hospitality.
Mhm.
I have no experience of running a cafe or restaurant. I have lots of experience being in cafes and restaurants, but other than as a consumer, it's not something that was on the horizon. I had rented a space in Pereira, a physical space. I was thinking of opening some kind of venue, but wasn't sure. But last year, me and a group of friends, we did an event called We Run Bali. And that was where we ran 500 kilometers around the island as a team of 5. So 100 kilometers each.
Wow.
Over 48 hours back to back. We had some camper vans and there was one person running at all times. And it was for the Bali Street Mums Foundation, which is based in Denpasar. And through that process, we spent more and more time with these kids. We saw the work that the foundation was doing. And I just completely fell in love with everything that they're about, really. So when we handed over the money at the end of the fundraising, it was such a realization that that's a one-off and that's done now. And they need to go and find other people to fill that gap for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And the biggest problem that they face is knowing when the next bit of funding is going to be coming and arriving. So with this space that I had this idea of maybe I could potentially do something that benefited them and brought them some kind of sustainable, reliable income that could really make a difference to these kids, essentially.
Can you tell me a little bit about Bali Street Mums as a foundation, what it stands for, what it's about?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful place. Like when you walk in there, the energy is just beautiful. When you hear some of the stories of the kids that are there, you have this feeling that it could be a very heavy experience to go in and see them, but the amount of beautiful energy that they just pour out when you walk in is just such a testament to the work that's being done there. So as kind of expats living in Bali, we see the nice cafes, the beach clubs, and the touristic lifestyle that's available and on show in the small areas that we live in. But actually, there's a huge amount of poverty in Bali, and still some awful cases of children living on streets, homelessness, begging, as far as trafficking and things like that. And Bali Street Mums have resources and teams to go around and find people that desperately need this help and bring them into a safe space. And then once they are connected with these children and these young families, they try and implement skills and the ability for kind of long-term change by providing experience that means they can go off and get their own jobs and have a different life in the future. So the work they're doing is absolutely incredible. Really powerful stuff.
And so I'm hearing that the purpose was always about Bali Street Mums, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to open a cafe and then that coming after. It's always been like, that's been your purpose, and that's been very grounded. And then the cafe has been a route to support Bali Street Mums. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I opening a cafe is not something that was on my radar whatsoever, which has been really interesting. But it felt like the best format for being able to give kind of long-term experience. So we're going to have some of the older kids coming and working at the cafe to get kind of skills, improve their English, get used to being in a hospitality environment, because there's so many hospitality jobs in Bali. The problem is for these kids is that entry level step, someone giving them their first chance to be able to kind of prove themselves and go and earn their own money and things. So the cafe just seemed like, with the space it had, it's not huge, it seemed like a good way to generate revenue. Cafes make money in Bali, and if half the profits are going to Bali Street Mums, we need a profitable business for that to be a sizable amount. And then also, those skills and being able to bring people up to a place where they can go off and find their own jobs. The other part of it is, when we were doing the We Run Bali element, I was blown away by how many people reached out and wanted to be a part of it. Even down to, whilst we were doing it, people coming and finding us and cheering us on and donating and offering skills that they could take to Bali Street Mums and go and see the kids. Just the awareness element and the recognition that there are just some really lovely people here in Bali that maybe want to do things to give back, but aren't quite sure of the channels, how to connect with these kind of organizations, and how it's easy to see the money that's being donated going to the right places. So the other element to the cafe is, it's going to be a space for these people to get together. All of these lovely people that you might walk past every day and have no idea that they exist. It's going to be, the idea of the cafe is to bring them together, to give a channel that raises awareness for this kind of thing and allows you to walk in and know you're surrounded by other big-hearted people that want to make a difference. So there's the local element of wanting to provide finances to the Bali Street Mums to improve living conditions and things there. And then there's the awareness element, which isn't as tangible, but I find has such a nice ripple effect. The amount of people that now reach out and say, oh, I'm going to get in touch and offer my skills in this area and things like that. I think people are just crying out for a bit of a way to do a bit more to give back. And that's what I really hope the cafe can become.
I think like that awareness piece that you're doing here is so huge, because I think a lot of the time people don't know they want to help. Like the intention is there, but they don't necessarily know how to and the channels in which to. So yeah, it's incredible what you're doing. I want to touch a little bit on opening a cafe, having, as you say, having had no hospitality experience before. Like, tell me about that journey for you.
Absolutely. It's been a big learning curve.
Yeah.
It's been quite humbling.
Yeah.
If you ask me about AI, tech, legal, and I'm fine. Ask me about cafes and hospitality. It's a brand new world to me. I think there's been a really interesting part of this process. When I said what I'm doing and said the concept of it having a charitable concept, a lot of people referred to cafes that used to exist that had a similar kind of vibe. And they say, oh, do you remember that cafe that used to kind of donate here or here? And none of those cafes still exist. So the angle that I'm coming from it to is, I know how to run a business because I've worked in business for 15 years. And that's the bit that I want to be able to provide, because this doesn't help anyone if it lasts a year or two and then no longer exists. This has to be around for 5, 10, 15 years to make real sizable kind of long-term impact. So from running a business aspect, I'm fine. And I know I've always worked in kind of sales-driven jobs, which is all about revenue generation. But actually running a cafe, I have no idea. So for that, I've been leaning on social media somewhat, which has been an interesting journey because I've never ran businesses personally myself. So I've never had any need to go to the market through my own kind of social channels. But the reason for it is when this cafe opens, people need to want to come. I think if I can get the cafe to a standard and covering the things that people want enough, when someone's deciding, do I go to this cafe or that cafe, if the coffee's the same standard, but half of the profits are going to charity at this one, they're going to go. If it's slightly substandard, that puts a bit of a conflict in the consumer. So I want to ask people. I don't know the answer to the question of what the best coffee looks like. I don't know whether people want to be sat inside in aircon or sat outside on a terrace looking at people go past. So I ask people. I put it out on polls on Instagram and I ask for their inspiration. I can't take everyone's insights, otherwise I'd end up pleasing nobody probably. But it's really useful for me having that brainstorming capability from actually the people in the area that would like to come. So yeah, that's been a big learning curve. And even putting these questions out to the community, you learn how everyone sees things in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
And it's quite beautiful because what I'm hoping to end up with is, for a lot of the people that are following the journey, when they walk through the door in 3 months' time to this cafe, they might see a bit of themselves in it where they helped shape a decision. And I want everyone to feel a part of this because I can't do it on my own. If I'm completely honest, I frequently feel quite overwhelmed from the project. I know that it's what I need to be doing, and that keeps me going. And I go and see the kids once a fortnight, and it gives me all the strength in the world. But this is brand new territory for me. It's not just my first business that I'm opening. It's my first business in a field I know nothing about. So just even having people interact with the stuff that I'm putting out makes me feel a lot less alone. Having you reach out made me feel seen and that what I was doing was important. And that gives me 20% more strength that day to be able to make a decision or to be strong about something or invest a bit more money. So people, the cafe is called Together, and that's the whole point. Like, we can make so much more difference as a community than as individuals. And that's I think that's the most beautiful thing that I've learned through this process so far.
I absolutely love that. And I love that you're building a community cafe, but then you're also leaning on your community to help you make those business and those marketing decisions. I think that's so smart, as well as, supporting you from a marketing point of view. Like, as you say, people are walking in and they feel part of the brand, they feel part of and connected to the cafe itself. One of the most incredible things about your cafe is that you are donating 50% of the profits to Bali Street Mums, which is, that's big. That's a big number. Can you talk us through that decision, how you came to that decision, and around that number as well?
Yeah, I can. It was an interesting one because I knew that I wanted to do something that made some kind of difference, and being able to provide that kind of sustainable, reliable financial support. One of the things that the foundations here struggle a lot with is there is money and funding available, but you think you're going to get it and it doesn't turn up, or maybe it's 6 months late, and they end up in this predicament of like, right, we need the base layer of food and electricity, but the toilet needs repair as well, but are we going to have enough money for that? So the issue that I really want to try and stop is not knowing where the next bit of funding is coming from, at least covering the basics. So anything extra is a bonus and can be spent doing nice things for the kids and giving them experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have. So it needed to be a relatively sizable chunk. But for that, I also put myself in the position of the consumer, of someone who is going to hear about this cafe and potentially be interested in the fact that it's for a good cause. And unfortunately, there's quite a lot of skepticism around kind of charitable causes, and you see CEOs of charities driving around in Ferraris and things like that, and you question where is the money actually going. One of the things that I was really working out what percentage to give, because I'm investing quite a lot up front in terms of capital, and the higher the percentage that I give, the longer it will take me just to break even. But for me, it's about the comfort of the people that are coming in. If someone said to me, oh, there's a percentage that ends up in charity and these are some of the things we've done, I would think, okay. But 50% is just so clean. It's so easy. It's so half of the profit ends up there.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there's no confusion there with myself or for the people coming into the cafe. And one of the things that I fully intend on doing is I'm actually going to publish the financials of this, of the investment, of the monthly turnover, of how much ends up directly in Bali Street Mums. And I'm going to make that common knowledge to everyone, approved by an external financial advisor. It's not going to be my word. It's not going to be a few pictures of us doing events with the kids. It's going to be a website that has a link to the financial report demonstrating that 50% is going there every single month. And I think for me, that's so important. It's the impact that money can make. It's remarkable how much difference. There's about 40 kids at this safe house. And it's amazing how much not a huge amount of money can make a difference. A reliable few £1,000s, or what would that be, kind of 50 million IDR, would just be game changing for the peace of mind of the people running this safe house. So it needed to be a big enough figure, and it needed to be clear enough for the people that want to be a part of it to know and feel comfortable that what's happening is what it says on the tin, basically.
I think it would give a real trust and confidence with the consumer that you've got all of that data to back you up as well. And, trust and confidence in you and the brand. I think that's incredible. Okay. We are running out of time, so I'm going to scroll through all of my...
What's the most important question you've got?
What's the most important? Okay.
What do you need from me?
We'll go to the quickfire Q&A to wrap up.
Quickfire.
So, best cafe in Bali besides Together, of course.
Cella, Uluwatu.
Okay. I haven't been to that one.
Best combination of coffee, create your own options on the menu, and wonderful staff.
Love it.
Just 10 out of 10.
Shout out to Cella.
Shout out to Cella.
Okay, great. Your go-to coffee order?
I have the exact same coffee every day. I have an iced latte with oat milk, but only a very minimal amount of oat milk so that it's still strong and tasty.
I love that. Awesome. Your biggest oh shit moment in your business so far, if you've had one?
When the initial amount that I thought this would cost me probably tripled over the first month.
Yeah, that was
it.
That would be it.
That was a big ocean.
That would do it. Wow.
Yeah.
And finally, your favorite thing about living in Bali?
It's got to be people. It's got to be people. You can find sunshine, good coffee, good gyms, nice scenery anywhere in the world, but the energy when you walk around this place is one of the most beautiful things in the world for me.
Dan, and on that note, thank you so much for coming to the pod. Where can people find you and the Together Café?
Together Café is coming, so we don't have website or Instagram yet, but you can follow along my process. It's Hobson_Dan1 on Instagram, and we will be publishing everything on there as it gets closer to opening date.
Amazing, and I'll put it in the show notes too.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Dan. And that's a wrap of Booked and Branded. If you loved it or even kind of just liked it, feel free to DM me at Ellie J. Neal. I love a voice memo, so drop in and say hi. If you're feeling generous, please leave a rating, a review, or even just chuck us a follow. It helps me keep bringing you these conversations. Until next time, stay booked, stay bold, and don't be afraid to make some noise.